So long ago, when I ended up going from a 23 handicap down to a 9 handicap in about 3 months, one of the biggest questions that I was always asked is, how did I progress so fast, so easily? And I'm going to tell you the secret is very simple. It is right in your face, and it's one of the few things you can do anywhere and just about everywhere. Let's go and work on your chipping and your short game. Because I decided, drills, I didn't want to wear green, so I bring you my most wrinkled shirt in my wardrobe right now. So let's talk about what really short game's all about and the fundamentals behind it. The biggest way you could go and lower down your entire handicap and improve your overall scores in your game is understanding what chipping, pitching, and just kind of punch shots all are as a general. There's so many different dynamics and fundamentals to what chipping and pitching actually is. I kind of feel like it's the most important part of your game, but the most neglected part of what YouTube really touches on. Not every single shot is going to be pretty much doing like what Phil Mickelson does, just these crazy BS trick shots. Those are fun, those are cool to do, but in all actuality, you're going to be doing about 1 to less than 1% of trick shots, flop shots. So to kind of break down a couple little things of that is you need to understand what tools you have in your bag that allows you to be able to go and get these different shots down. You're going to be asking yourself when you're approaching your shots, do you use your pitching wedge? Do you use your gap wedge? Do you use your sand wedge? Do you use your lob wedge? A good number of the times, depending on how close and how short you are, let alone, again, demographic really plays a big part in all this too. Here in the Pacific Northwest, when you start getting into certain times of the year, the ground is so soft, you could get pretty much any ball to stick to any green. So a good number of these aren't a necessity unless you're really trying to get it over all the junk. Sometimes you just want it to go and run out. So wedges are one of your parts of your game that you're going to need to focus on a lot because this is touch and feel. This is going to be where your skill and ability is going to come into play. The other part of it, you have, believe it or not, your 7-iron, and if you have them, you're hybrid. If you don't have this, you can use a 3-iron, you can use a 4-iron, and even some people I've seen even use like a 5-wood or something. Understand there is a percentage per every single club on your launch, landing, and rollout. And that's where the dynamics are going to start coming into play with all this. Aside from understanding how your clubs are actually going to go and pop the ball up enough to what you're trying to do to run out is probably the most important thing next to understanding your feel of how far you could actually throw the ball. Because this isn't your standard swing where you could just sit there and do full shots every single time to create that repetition. You need to understand your own feel. The touch around the greens is an old saying that stands true still today. It doesn't matter if you have the newest technology or the oldest technology. You need to learn how you get your feel of being able to throw the ball certain distances. Full swings, you get your full distances of your relative consistency. I'll do another video talking about aiming and understanding the landing area and your yardages. That's again another video. But for this one, we're going to be discussing short game. Now, when most people I see, and I admit I am pretty bad about this, I see most people when they go up for a chip shot or a pitch shot, they take their lob wedge. This goes back to one of my other videos talking about Pro V1s not being the best, spin's not everything. Everybody talks about they have to play the highest spin ball. No, you don't. If you are trying to get the ball to fly a short distance and then land and stop immediately, yes, that's where a lob wedge or a sand wedge or something like that's going to come into play. But it's not your go-to chip and pitch shot because I'm just going to throw numbers at them. They're not set in stone because everybody's swing is different. Everybody's game is different. My 60-degree wedge will roughly land about 75% carry with the rest being rollout. And that isn't the best because sometimes I want it to roll out. That's where learning your chip shots are more or less just to get it over the junk that's in front of you and then roll out as if it's a putt. So if you're hitting off of the green into the green, you want to get a good read on the way that the green's going to roll. Set yourself up in a position that you could actually go and get your chip to land just on the collar to take the majority of the energy out, or just onto the green, and then roll out as if it's a putt on it. That's where something like this will work better in tight shots where it's a short pin or you need to stop really quick so it doesn't run down a hill or something. Next up on it, you're going to be doing shots with your sand wedge. So when it comes to your sand wedge, I use a 54 degree for mine. Some people have a 56 degree, you know, you be you, you're gonna have your own setup for your game and what's gonna work better for you. Using a 54 degree wedge is gonna do everything I need that a 56 degree does. So let's not even talk about degree or loft or anything for that one. Sand wedge in general is gonna be more or less your utility club. You're gonna use this on most shots. You need to understand how to flight the ball. I'll talk about that a little bit later in this video. That's going to be the biggest part of the video that you're really going to want to pay attention to on how you could actually lower your scores tremendously, is understanding how to utilize this club, as well as if you have a gap wedge, if not your pitching wedge to its fullest. This one should be roughly about 60% carry and the rest 40% being rollout. This is going to be your go-to for sand shots, elevated shots, trying to get it just enough to get out there and have your control point of rollout and everything else. This is a good range to be able to have your overall touch control of the green. Understand how to use your sand wedge in all different aspects will not only affect how your game's going to change and improve, but it's also going to make you understand how you could use your different clubs in general. I've seen people do a lot of chip shots with 9 irons of anything else. I've seen people do it with 8 irons. But even so, same thing with your pitching wedge. Same rules apply across all of these same clubs. So back when I was actually working on lowering my scores, we had about a 35-yard chipping green at the course I used to work at. Now with this approach, I would take different positions on this approach and try to go and more or less do pitch and chip shots into this little green to try to get it as close as I possibly could and understand not every single shot you are going to be attacking the pin. I don't want to be the person that's going to be quoting just Tiger Woods or other people, but Tiger Woods did really have a really good short and video explaining he does not attack all the pins. He doesn't aim directly at them every single time. It may be one per round, but for the most part, you're not attacking directly. You're going to always land your ball short and throw it up, unless you know how to control the spin, and then you can throw it behind it and roll it back to it. But I'm not talking about that. This is for everybody that needs to learn, control, and feel to be able to go and improve their game. So I used to go and take my 7-iron in this 35-yard approach shot and just do different little pitch shots and some punch shots at the collar or the approach itself. Let it hit, let it take most of the roll out of it and just kind of trickle on up. This allows me basically to do a very long putt from an approach. It's good, clean turf. You don't really need to worry about a whole lot. So it's just a quick little putt. It's a very simple movement that you could replicate. This is something that if you don't use it in your actual game, you should at least practice it so you get the feel and understanding of what I'm talking about. It is very strange and foreign when you first try it, but after it kind of clicks, you'll understand how vital it actually is to be able to use, you know, a 7-iron for a chip shot, whether it be 50 yards out or, you know, 10 yards into the green. Last but not least, when it comes to any of these, I'm not a fan of doing it because I don't feel right using my hybrid for most of the shots. As a matter of fact, it's not even in my bag anymore, but I did practice it to get a feel and understanding of when you have shots that are just off of the collar, it's maybe in the rough or something, and you're right there at the green, you could use like a 3 hybrid or any equivalency around there to just set it up like a putter and just give it a nice little putt. It barely gets it up and out off the ground just to get it out of that little line of rough that you have. Or you might even take, again, like, you know, your sand wedge or a lob wedge and just blade it, because you're not trying to make interaction with the turf, just to push it out of the rough. So I'm going to demonstrate a couple different ways for you to go and understand the dynamics and fundamentals of chipping and pitching. Hopefully it helps your game. So I'm going to explain a couple different types of pitch and chip shots using different pros, because this is not a one shoe fits all type of thing. Everybody is going to go and play your game entirely different. There's a reason I'm using these two professionals as an example, because they were top players for a very long time. People like to go and try to mimic what the pros typically do. Get it as an idea of how your swing is going to work with it and how you work with it. What feels comfortable to you is going to benefit you the most. Don't mold your game to mimic someone else. If it doesn't feel right, it's not going to work. So the way that Tiger likes to go and chip, it tends to go more or less square at lineup and impact, and he'll do like a little hinge and flip almost back square to impact. The way that Phil does it is generally he'll open up his stance a little bit, open up his club, slightly re-grip, a little bit more of a drastic movement to it, a bit more aggressive, but it works out all the same. Having it open up a little bit creates a little bit higher pop. It rolls on the face a little bit more on the less aggressive shots, because you're not engaging the grooves as much. He'll actually cock his wrist back just a little bit, and it's a little bit more handsy and a bit more movement with the knees and hips. Both of those work out great. The problem with both of them is you have a chance of chunking it, hitting behind the ball. The one with Tigers, the problem with it is you have a chance of blading it, hitting it thin, and watching it shoot across the green. Again, these are just examples of how you could do these. I like to try to mimic a little bit more of Phil's, because it is you could replicate it very easily. So more or less, by being set up, you're still having soft wrists and soft hands, but you're locked in a little bit better position, and you could just get a better feel of how you're doing it. And with that same motion and movement, essentially the idea is the club is an extension of you, and you're getting that same idea of you're just trying to toss it with the club face. You could get a little bit fancier once you start getting these basic stuff down, but it's the same concept. You're trying to get that feel of how far you're trying to throw it. Same thing as putting. It's as if you're just gently rolling the ball. So I'm going to show a couple different shots here explaining this is how you need to learn flighting your ball. It works both in chip and pitch shots. Understand the only difference between a chip and a pitch. A chip is you're literally just chipping at the ground. You're kind of just popping it up in the air and letting it go. It's kind of like a putting stroke in a way. And a pitch is an abbreviated swing. I'm going to have another video following up this one explaining how your entire game should be funneled off of the very basic foundations of chip shots. Again, that'll be the next video. So anyways, without further ado, I'm going to show you a couple different shots going across my driveway, because it's a pretty decent area to show. I have a distance that I need to make it over, and I have a couple different clubs to show you the different flighting of how I'm trying to accomplish said shot. So I'm going to do 4 different shots with the wedges to start with those. 60 degree, 54, my gap wedge, and a pitching wedge. I'm just going to punch them across my driveway so you can get an idea of what the flight characteristics are going to be. This gives me a good demonstration of I'm trying to get the distance across into the other grass. Starting 60 degree. .54 degree. 50 degree. And now pitch and wedge. So this is where it starts getting a little bit more interesting. You could do these either as a punch shot. For those that don't know what a punch shot is, usually it is a rescue shot. You could do it if you're stuck underneath a tree or something. or you just need to get it from the other fairway that you hit into back into yours into play, you could do an abbreviated swing where it is just half and half. You're just stabbing, slapping at the ball just enough loft. Again, 7-iron might be a little much for punch shots. Usually I do at the 5 up, but the idea is you're just trying to get it enough off the ground with a good punch out at a distance of 50 plus yards or so. You could be your judge on your distancing on that later on, but you know, it's the idea of it's a shot you need to practice to be able to replicate, especially starting out in golf. You're going to be in trees and bad shots all the time. But I'm going to show you what pitching with these two clubs also do. These are going to be more of a chip shot with these, trying to replicate the same distances. So this here will be my 7-iron. And the other good thing with something like this is when you're set up in a position where you have, say, like hard pan, I'll just say my driveway's hard pan, or a cart path or anything else, you don't really need to worry about if you hit it, but you just want it to keep going just in case it does, so it doesn't stop and get stuck in it. This is gonna be more of a putt or a chip motion using a 3 hybrid. So now that you have the understanding of how to more or less do your typical chip or pitch shots across, say, a hazard or an obstacle or something, bunker, whatever you name it, it gives you an idea. You have options in your bag to be able to do the same thing. Now, the fact that I was able, for the most part, get the distances the same goes to show that I've focused entirely on feel with it. I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying it's a good thing to do, but I am a smoker. When I do go out to smoke, I do chip when I do it because I'm ADHD. It helps me kind of stay focused on something. And let's face it, it's fun when you practice, and you can make little games out of it, which makes your short game drastically better. If you don't have space in your yard or something that you could actually use real golf balls, I actually like to use these foam ones. You can pick them up at like Walmart or something. That's where I got these ones. You can pick up the Callaway ones in buckets or different bags and stuff. You get them at Dick's Sporting Goods. The foam ones are a little bit better than your plastic ones. They replicate the flight a little bit better. They still give you contact, and they do give a more realistic flight path than the wiffle balls do. By explaining that the ball itself makes a big difference to it is mostly because you can't quite get the same flight characteristics out of the wiffle balls to practice flighting it. And that's where the big part of understanding chipping is going to come in, because if you don't know how to flight your ball, you're not going to be able to have that in your toolbox to be able to attack the pin at different positions or be able to go and get yourself into a nice setup to make that short putt. So I'm going to hit 3 different shots. I'm going to hit a low shot, a mid shot, or what I call standard, then a high shot. I'm going to do again, roughly try to get them about the same distance. You're going to have to focus on how much power you need to be able to perform these shots, because the type of stroke you're doing, it's going to take a progression of power to be able to get it to carry as far as you need to. So lower shot, you're gonna de-loft it a little bit, play it slightly back in your stance, and then it's mostly gonna be just rotation of shoulders and hips. That's about it. So you lock everything else in, so it makes it a little bit easier to replicate the same movement, which gives you less of a chance to chunk it. That's why I, for the most part, kind of replicate Phil's chip method. So again, a low flighted shot. Now for a mid or standard shot, I generally stay kind of square to it. I open up my stance a little bit, but I play it slightly more center of my stance, and I just kind of gently give it a nice little throw at it. Now, if you want to do the same shot and add spin, there's a saying of the longer you see the face towards the target, the more spin you get. You could practice that later on, but just know your normal swing that you have, this is the same motion that you're going to be replicating for your standard chip shot. Notice how the ball went a little bit higher than that. It is going to be coming out with a little bit more spin. Now, for the higher lofted shot, you're going to want to open up your stance, open up the face of the club, You need to figure out where your impact position is. You're going to be using the bounce of your wedge more than you are going to be using the rest of the club. You want that bounce to hit the ground and bounce the club back up under the ball. And this is where having timing and understanding your swing path and impact is going to matter the most. But being able to go and pull off high shots like this, take two. But being able to pull off high shots like this is going to allow you to actually be a lot more aggressive. Even as a foam ball, it had the tendency to go and roll back too. So keep that in mind, that the higher the shot that you're going to hit is going to actually stop a little bit quicker because of the spin that's going to be coming off of it. So learning your 3 different flighting of your chip shots is going to apply to your pitch as well. This is where you are going to actually take all of these horrible shots that you've had going into the green, running past the pin and everything else. You're going to give yourself opportunities. Lowering your score is not hitting every fairway, hitting every green. The better I got, the less amount of fairways I actually was hitting. But I gave myself many opportunities to be able to actually make birdie or make par. I set myself up for better shots in at the pin on the green itself. When you set up for a good putt, it eliminates most of the problems that you actually have. These are all going to be shots to rescue you. This is where your game is going to be focused on. The best players in the world have an amazing short game. You can hit the ball stupid long distances. Look at the career of John Daly. He was one of the longest hitters. Most people recognize him for, cigarette in mouth, hitting off a beer can, or his over the line swing and all the other stuff. But his short game was phenomenal. And he actually was able to go and set himself up for a lot of good shots, or he would just chip in. And let's face it, chipping in feels a lot better than actually making putts sometimes. So the last little thing I want to leave off with is you need to practice the different feel of stuff. But the biggest thing you need to focus on before you start working on flighting the ball, you need to start actually working on, I'm going to pick a spot just on the other side, and I'm going to try to keep on hitting it. That one was slightly thinned. Gonna try to hit it roughly about the same spot. Again, went a little bit left. But the idea of what you're trying to focus on is you're ingraining in your body how you need to come in and replicate it over and over again. Repetition is gonna be the key that's gonna allow you to do this. By being able to land all your balls roughly in the same spot, that's gonna give you your best opportunities. This is going to teach you your feel, touch, and your control. So the last thing that you need to be thinking about, in all honesty, is my ball going to spin? Do I need the highest spin ball to perform these shots? Actually, as a matter of fact, no, you don't. My best scores were played with the Wilson Staff Zip. That is not a high spinning ball on wedges. That is a pretty good spin on irons and full shots, but it's not a wedge club or ball. So no, you don't need to do high spin shots every single time. You don't need to be playing a Pro V1. You don't need to be playing a Z-Star or a Chrome Soft. This is where you need to learn landing your ball consistently in an impact area. Once you get all that down and you understand how your ball, your constant gaming ball, not switching up all over the place, you need one singular ball that you could keep the same feel, the same motion, the same movement. If you're playing a low spin ball, you need to learn bump and runs. Just to get the ball up, get it to hit, and run out almost like a putt. That's where understanding your control of where your impact's gonna be and your landing is gonna be. Because if you could keep replicating it, you could have the highest spin ball and you got the lowest spin ball and do the same thing with it. You just need to learn how that ball reacts to it and change your attack based on that. I got so used to playing low spin balls for a long time that sometimes when I do go to a higher spin ball, I will leave myself 30 feet short on a putt because I thought, okay, it's going to be a zip, it's going to hit, and it's going to roll out another 20 feet. No, it just hit and stopped within a couple inches at impact. But by taking that into consideration, taking your club choice into consideration, if I did it with not my 54 degree and I upped up to the pitching wedge, it would have been a better shot because of the amount of spin that the ball's performing. This is understanding your game, your feel, your control, and your equipment. The best part about it is you could pretty much do this with any club as well as any ball. Once you get it in your hand and you get the feel, the weight, and everything else, you should be able to replicate this with the most expensive wedges and the cheapest wedges you could possibly have. This is why you see a lot of these YouTubers and stuff being able to do a whole lot of fun shots with, I'm gonna go out and play a whole entire match with this brand new set of Tacoma irons or these new sticks or Miuras or whatever. You know, this is how they're able to go and get a cheap box set, go out and play pretty much scratch golf. It's because all of this is not your equipment. This is your feel. This is your game. This is your body. This is you being athletic and technical. So I know this is kind of long-winded. I know there was a lot to kind of digest with this. Hopefully this actually helps some people out because I feel like this isn't really evolved on and grown into with people explaining in depth. Any other videos that I am going to be touching on with instructions or drills or practices or anything like that, I do want to leave it open where it's not, this is the one all swing thing that you have to do, because it doesn't work for everybody. Some does, some don't. Again, I have some limitations with my body, like my back starts to bug me a lot and I have issues with it, as well as my knee will lock up at times. So being able to do something that's a little bit more with the hip or the back works better for me. Again, long tangent, sorry about all this. Hopefully it was informative, hopefully you learned something, and most of all, hopefully it allows you to enjoy your game more, because let's face it, the whole reason why you clicked on this video is you want to enjoy golf more. We all enjoy it. We all love it. It's fun, even though we want to bash our head against the wall because we had a couple of bad shots and we shot 116 on a hole, or not a hole, but a course, after we just shot, you know, an 81 the day before. So if you'd like to see more content like this, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on how you feel about this, because any feedback is going to help me with my further videos on being able to use my knowledge to explain to other people. If it did help you, let me know down below. If you disagree, cool, I'd like to hear that too. Well, again, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Keep it in the fairway. Have a good one.